Our labor market is set up in the industrial fashion. This worked extremely well for the first 50 years. The boss at the top, middle management, and the laborers, a vertical hierarchy. The laborers had very tangible results for their labor. They probably had low education, so they needed supervision and people to tell them what to do. With a good union in place, these blue-collar jobs were set up to be the most efficient systems possible at the time. With globalization and mechanization, however, white-collar jobs began replacing blue-collar jobs as the more dominant labor. However, their structures were still set up following the industrial blue-collar system of hierarchies: CEO, middle management, employee. The employee was hired because of their brain and education, and so they could use them. However, the management was still set up to treat you like you were uneducated. The top best businesses in the US to work for have been shown to have a horizontal structure as opposed to the vertical system. The people hired to think are allowed to do just that. Think. Their productivity is just as high as the regular system, if not higher, and they have massive company loyalty. In a vertical system, if a manager sees you not looking like you're working, they assume you aren't, so they load you up with more work. They can't even imagine that maybe you're just relaxing a bit from doing something extremely strenuous. Why many in white-collar jobs spend most of their time trying to look busy as opposed to actually doing work. Dilbert is a perfect example of this phenomena. According to Robert Sapolsky, this kind of labor structure is very parallel to many ape colonies. The CEO or boss has the most difficult job with the most stress, trying to keep the stockholders happy, assuming this guy doesn't have a multi-million-dollar golden parachute should they dismiss him. This stress is called executive stress. Apes and rat studies have shown a very good way of alleviating this kind of stress is to take it out on someone else. If an ape loses a fight and gets bumped down a notch in the social structure, or just has a bad day being at the top, it will go and find a lower-ranking member with nothing to do with it to take things out on. The bully's cortisol level is now lower, and the member they beat the crap out of is much higher. Bullies will do this, usually from abusive homes where their parents will transfer their stress to their children via abuse, and the child will transfer their stress to other children via bullying. Hence the long-term phrase, shit rolls downhill. On a bad day, the CEO can transfer stress downward, the manager can transfer stress downward, all the way down to the lowest employee. Another form of stress is called controlled stress. If you feel like you have control over your situation, your stress levels are lower, even if the situational stress is extremely high. If you're running at the whim of your boss and have no control, this produces high stress and learned helplessness. Bosses will micromanage like crazy, then wonder why their underlings can't seem to be able to think for themselves. What's the point of thinking for oneself in that situation? It's been discouraged, and therefore that part of your brain no longer functions. Managers get both types of stress, executive stress and control stress from their higher-ups. I've known many really cool individuals going into management and lose themselves and their physique through this kind of stress. The stress produces regression, and they turn into massive assholes out of desperation, especially if they start out trying too hard to be the good guy straight from the get-go. The horizontal system, however, breeds company loyalty, which shows in studies that people with company loyalty work so much harder and enjoy working hard to make their company great. People with the vertical system are pretty much just in it for the paycheck, and the company be damned, it obviously doesn't care about me. They would fire me in a heartbeat, and with the level of stress I have right now, I would relish it if this was in the middle of a recession. Many American jobs involve tangible, sedentary, non-creative labor. We don't see the results of our labor. We can't use our muscles, which is the only way to burn off stress hormone cortisol. We also have a limited level of willpower per day, and forcing yourself to stay indoors and put up with bullshit inefficiency is very taxing. The willpower to resist the fight or flight tendency in the face of an angry boss is also very draining. Positive stress is an unlimited and sorely untapped resource in the US. Humans on this planet have spent as much combined time playing World of Warcraft as we have spent evolving from Australopithecus to now. Games take effort. They place a stress on the brain and force it to think, more so than just sitting on the couch passively watching TV. People evolve to have positive stress and thrive on it. The feeling of accomplishment for what they have done. and the feeling of recognition. People will work longer in lower paid jobs if they have these than in higher paid jobs if they have the typical white collar, no loyalty variety of job. European labor studies are beginning to look at better ways to structure jobs to tap positive stress, while the US tends to be completely oblivious to labor studies. Another study that is done is that people who are paid to be creative and think actually do worse when there is financial incentive. The get paid by the hour mindset works great in tangible labor situations. The more you work, the more you're paid. This is actually opposite in creative, intangible labor. People who have their needs met and are given creative outlet and autonomy do very well. People who have little autonomy and have time limits on their creativity do much more poorly. So why is there no change in the system if studies show it's inefficient? Money. It costs a lot of money and training to change the dynamic of a situation like this. Plus, profit is so important, millions in waste can fall through the cracks if there's no incentive to stop it. I worked for ConAgra for about 4 months in the recession. Talk about waste. There were nearly 1,000 work orders at any one time. Things kept breaking down, but they didn't fix the cause of the problems because that would require a few weeks of planned shutdown, and output was the highest priority. I talked to an old Cuban contractor they hired on who was just appalled at the waste. He calculated that if they redirected the steam and certain other mechanical changes to the system, he could save them around $14 million a year in wasted steam power and milk loss. It probably never happened because they have no incentive to make that investment, as they are the top provider of food in the nation. Changing the labor structure would do the very same thing, so that kind of investment will not happen without government intervention.